And now, live from the studios of WCCO-TV, serving St. Paul and Minneapolis, Minnesota, a program to stop drugs at the source. Your host, the Attorney General of Minnesota, the Honorable Hubert H. Humphrey III.
Hello, I'm Hubert Humphrey, Attorney General of Minnesota. I'm pleased to be joining with you in this great campaign to stop drugs at the source by treaty. It's time that we take this problem into our own hands, to let the people decide for themselves how to stop the problem of drugs and illegal use of drugs in the hands of children. I'm very pleased to be able to participate in this process in the state of Minnesota, and I'm glad to see that we have this connection between Atlanta and the state of Georgia and our state of Minnesota. And I'm very pleased to be here with Ken Crowder to see that all of this will take place on a positive scale across the country.
Thank you, Skip. The Georgia General Assembly several years ago set the nation and the world on a course to keep drugs away from children. We found out there's basically one word that separates the good people and the bad people, and the word is organized. The criminal element is organized. So we had to determine, how do we, the good people, become organized? There's a great plan. It's called the Constitution, and each state has one, and of course the United States Constitution. So what began this year in the state of Georgia is, county by county, community leaders are using the Constitution to develop policy to keep drugs away from children. And we are thrilled, more than I can tell you, to be here, to where the campaign will be extended beyond the 159 counties of Georgia into the 87 counties of Minnesota, and we will take the Minnesota-Georgia connection into the entire United States and then the world.
I'm glad to see that that is the kind of thing that can work out together. You know what's so important is to have the people themselves bring these ideas all the way across the country so that we can then begin on implementing those good ideas of how to solve this problem.
That's right. It's called the buy-in. If you don't allow the local community leader to give input for the policy, then it's not his, and if it's not his, then the chances of the local people supporting something that they didn't develop is out. So we're, more than I can tell you, we're so pleased to be here to hear the commitments of the leaders of Minnesota, as well as we're honored to have some people from Georgia extending their welcome to the state of Minnesota.
Now we have a number of people that have come today to indicate their support and to discuss their concerns about the use and the illicit use of drugs and the problems that has caused in our state, and how we can begin working together to solve these problems ourselves. I'd like to have each one of those individuals come forward and to express their concern and their commitment in this campaign that is starting today.
Mr. Attorney General.
Yes, sir.
I'm Manuel Maloof, the Chief Executive Officer of DeKalb County, and I want to tell you that I'm delighted to be here today to give you the kind of support that you're showing to spread this into the 87 counties of Minnesota. We in Georgia have been working on this with Ken for a number of years and have seen some success, but it's going to take all of us working together. Not government telling people. People are going to have to work with us, and we're going to have to be the leaders to make sure that this network spreads and that we bring America back to where it needs to be and get drugs out of our system entirely. Anything that we can do in Georgia to help you in your program in Minnesota, we certainly stand ready to do that. But one thing that all Americans have got to realize, that if we're going to have the kind of a country we all believe in, then drugs have got to get out of our lives, and we've all got to work towards that. And what you're doing up here is what we want to see spread over the 50 states of this country and around the world. And we stand ready to help you all the time, and we thank you for what you all are doing up here.
Well, thank you. A commitment across this country is what's going to bring this all together. Thank you very much for that commitment.
Mr. Attorney General?
Yes, sir.
I'm Doug Stamps of Atlanta, Georgia, and I represent Honeywell, Atlanta.
We thank you for
coming.
coming.
I'm very proud to be here.
Wonderful.
The Honeywell Community Action Committee in Atlanta has been involved with the Stop Drugs at the Source campaign since 1978, and I have brought with me a special resolution that has been signed by all members of the Honeywell Community Action Committee in Atlanta, Georgia, and this can be used as a guideline for other people who would like to use this in their future endeavors to help with the problem with illegal drugs around the United States. And thank you very much
good.
for the
Thank
opportunity.
you. The corporate commitment, the public and private commitment, and the commitment of a company that is here and in Atlanta is the kind of organization that we need in order to make this work.
That's right, and I'll be proud to help you in any way that I can in Minnesota.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Attorney General?
Yes, sir.
I'm Ron Handberg, the Vice President and General Manager of WCCO Television. And I must say we're very pleased to be your hosts here for this conference back to Georgia, and very excited to be part of this most important project. As a broadcasting leader in the community, we think it's part of our responsibility to be part of these kinds of projects, Stop Drugs at the Source. And we hope that we can participate further by helping develop public service spots and campaigns that will help alert parents and community leaders and governmental bodies throughout the state of Minnesota into how to combat drugs. We also have here today in the audience a representative of the Minnesota Association of Broadcasters, and I know that organization, as our station, is very interested in this process and this project and will do everything it can to help. So we're pleased to have you all here and pleased to be part of the satellite connection between Minnesota and Georgia.
Well, the communication link is essential if we're going to get the word out all the way across so that everyone can participate in the campaign.
Well, I think that's true, and I think the power of broadcasting and the power of television to help inform and excite people in this country to this problem is essential, and I hope we can all do our part.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Auditor, please introduce yourself to the people of Georgia.
Hi, I'm Arnie Carlson, State Auditor of the state of Minnesota. And on behalf of the 87 counties of the state of Minnesota, we're delighted to join the Attorney General, delighted to join the state of Georgia in a partnership really to eliminate drugs. It's a problem that a lot of us don't think affects us, but it does. It destroys our families, it destroys our communities, it destroys our schools, but more than anything else, it destroys the future of this nation by the destructive harm that it has upon our children. And I really hope that each and every one of us, at the end of this program, will make a personal commitment to eliminate drugs wherever and whenever it occurs. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your commitment.
Mr. Attorney General,
Yes, sir.
I'm Don D., Executive Director of the Minnesota State Pharmaceutical Association, and the pharmacists of the state of Minnesota are delighted to join with this group and delighted to see this group of public officials at the local level throughout the country, throughout the states of Minnesota and Georgia, and from throughout the country beyond that, joining in our concern and the concern that a lot of health professionals have in the area of improving the health and avoiding the health care problems that we sometimes get into through improper drug use. We're delighted to join with this group. I know your father before you was a pharmacist, and he was concerned about drug use and drug misuse, and the pharmacists of Minnesota stand pledged and willing to cooperate with this effort. We're delighted to be here.
That's wonderful. Thank you. It's certainly important to know the legal use and the illegal use and that impact, and certainly the pharmacists can help us in discussing that as the policies are developed.
Thank you.
Good. Madam Secretary.
Hello, Skip. I'm Joan Groh, and I'm the Secretary of State in Minnesota. As a parent and a former teacher, I'm very excited about the campaign we kick off today. The pain and the suffering which is at the heart of drug addiction has touched all of our lives, all of our families, and all of our counties here in Minnesota. We know that there's no single solution for this tragedy. We need better law enforcement to take the financial rewards out of the drug trade. We need improved access to treatment facilities to heal the victims of drugs. But I'm also convinced that the strength of our families and the power of education can be used through this treaty campaign around the counties to stop drugs at the source. Several years ago, both First Lady Nancy Reagan and the Reverend Jesse Jackson entered into national campaigns to help our young people become drug-free. Their success has spawned local efforts throughout the country. We commend our Georgia friends, where the treaty program among counties began, for setting an example of how our communities can play an active part in drug education. And here in Minnesota, Attorney General Skip Humphrey has taken a leadership role in establishing this campaign, and I share his commitment to extending this program to all of our counties. It is with an effort that we join together. We in Minnesota know that when we join together, we can accomplish things. And it is in that spirit that we urge all of you to help in an educational and promotional program to stop drug abuse, because working together, we in Minnesota know that we can make a difference.
Very good. Thank you. Senator Hughes.
Mr. Attorney General, good to see you.
Good to see you.
He was with me as a member of the Minnesota Senate. I'm Jerome Hughes, President of the Minnesota Senate. I'm very glad to be here today to support this network with the state of Georgia in a very important issue to both states and, of course, to all the people in the nation. Sometime, I hope, Skip, will have the opportunity to tell Georgia about our developing early childhood family education program in this state, where really with the preparation of childbirth, we get parents involved in their role as the first and most important educators of their children, recognizing the home as the first academy for learning. And one of the things we have to do is very early tell parents the whole issue of drugs, be they chemicals or whatever, and this area of prevention, primary prevention, is very, very important. In the network idea between the states, what we will want to do here in Minnesota is to provide leadership at the Senate level and at the House of Representatives level, probably through our Human Services, Health and Human Services Committee, hopefully get a joint committee of the Senate and the House members to tie in with the counties of the state and have an excellent network of information and establish communication links with the boards of education at the local district level, as well as parents in our community education programs and our developing early childhood and family education programs. And I'm sure that Minnesota will learn a lot from Georgia, and I'm sure that we have much that we can give in the way of ideas back to the state of Georgia.
You know, Jerry, this reminds me of many of the times when I was in the state legislature. We had so many wonderful visits with other legislators. We learned so much from each other, and this is what this whole program is about. Don't you think we'd have the same kind of reaction here as we develop this networking, as you've mentioned?
Exactly. I have the opportunity to meet with many legislators in the state, presidents of senates, speakers of houses, majority, minority leaders, as well as people who chair the committees, just like you have opportunity to meet with other attorney generals in the country. And this kind of exchange of ideas will help, I think, and of course the business community, the education community, the health community, and the elected public policy people of this state, I know will get behind this program 100%.
Very good. Thank you very much. Hello.
Mr. Attorney General, I'm Colleen O'Kane representing the St. Paul Jaycees, and the Jaycees across the nation have been aware of the problems with drugs in our children for a long time. The Minnesota Jaycees have a priority project called Alcohol and Drug Abuse, where we try to educate children in the grade schools and high schools. We are fully behind this campaign. We know it is a problem here in our state as well as the states across the nation. I challenge all Jaycees, especially those in Minnesota and Georgia where the campaign has kicked off, and all those across the entire world to get behind this campaign so we can keep drugs away from our children.
You know, it's interesting. So often people will say, well, government's got to do something about these kinds of problems. But isn't it really true that we have to do it both from the public side and the private side? Wouldn't you think that that's
I agree it is, and belonging to a civic organization, I think it's up to us to make sure that our towns are the way we want them, and if we don't want drugs in them, we can stop them.
I'm really glad to see that the JCs are actively involved, but of course there are so many other service organizations too, and don't you think we should probably have those involved also?
I think they should all be involved, and I think that they'll want to be involved as soon as they find out what's happening.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Attorney General?
Yes, sir.
I'm Guy Shelley, Division Vice President with 3M Company. And we're just proud to be here today to commit ourselves to this resolution and on behalf of the company and to help our employees in the various operations to bring the best minds and the best thoughts that will help take this tragic thing away from our children and help us all grow. In fact, I'd give a personal word about the subject. My wife and my family, children, have moved some 10 times in the United States in our career with 3M Company. I have yet to have lived in a place where a son or a daughter or a mother or a father or an aunt and so on around the family hasn't been influenced in some way, shape, or form by illicit and some legal drugs. And it's just no question that it's out of control. Today, as we stand here, there are people in our company, parents and single parents and sons and daughters who aren't able really to bring their best to the job because somewhere in their family life or their association, it is tugging at their hearts. And so I just think if you take a look at what's happening here, responsible government, responsible industry companies, and responsible civic organizations, I don't see how we can't help but win.
I was just going to say, it seems to me that we must get at this problem, at its source, at the child level, if we're really going to look towards the future of those children being productive individuals working for companies such as yours.
Yes. And I'd add this, that's the true spirit of Christmas.
It certainly is.
Attorney General
Yes,
Humphrey, Ed McGlynn from IBM, External Programs Manager. We're very solidly behind your program. Minnesota and Georgia are two great centers of IBM. We have a large number of IBMers who work in both states, and we're very pleased to join with you and other government and community leaders in this grassroots fight against drugs in the 87 counties of Minnesota. Very pleased to be on board with you.
Well, thank you very much. We need that public and private commitment. That's the kind of thing that I think will make this whole process really be productive.
Yes, you can be assured it's teamwork that's going to do it, and we're here to play on that team. So
thank you.
We're glad to have you as a leader.
Thank you very much, Ed. Mr. Justice?
Mr. Attorney General, how are you? I'm Justice George Scott of the Minnesota Supreme Court, and I'm here today to pledge the cooperation of all the judges. We have a judge designated to sit in each county in this state, and the judges are so involved in the problems of the family and children in this state, and they'd like to be involved in some of the solutions. And I pledge that whatever our judges can do to help in the organization or the thinking of some solutions to this problem, that we would like to do that. I also would like to suggest that maybe the judges in the state of Georgia who have been involved in this program and who could assist us with some ideas of how the court can become involved in the thinking and organization, that they might do so for us. Thank you.
Justice Scott, let me just mention something. Quite often people will mention to me that they understand that the criminal law is where the process really gets to the courts. But of course, this drug problem really starts at a much earlier stage and can actually affect families and the family law courts that we have in this state. It's much broader than just a criminal problem, isn't it? Isn't that where the judges also get directly involved?
The judges are directly involved in the family problems from the time the children are young, and the problems start in the family and follow it all the way through to the adult criminal law problems that this field involves.
So it's really important that we actually get at that source at that time framework where the child is young, rather than waiting until someone commits a crime when they're older.
Well, we must, because they are the future of our country.
Thank you, Mr. Justice.
Skip,
Ken?
you got a wonderful bunch of people up here.
Well, we're ready to go to work, Ken.
Really enjoyed it. I would like to make a further comment concerning the USA Treaty map, where you can see the handful of counties where it began in Georgia and how it's skipping to Hennepin County in Minnesota, and then it will go to the 87 counties, and then from Georgia and Minnesota to the nation. But we've got a little bit of time. I would like to ask Manuel Maloof to step in here with us for just a minute.
Sure.
Manuel being the Chief Executive Officer of DeKalb County, and this being a county-to-county campaign. And Manuel, you just say a few more words for us.
Well, I think Justice Scott and everybody here addressed it, but what really worries me more than anything else is a country as great as ours all of a sudden has let drugs more or less dominate a great segment of our society. And when we look to the future of who's going to develop the planning and running of this country, who's going to fly our airplanes, who's going to drive our cars, who's going to run our governments, we're not going to let drugs dominate it. If we don't get together now and stop it, we may have some problems we can't deal with. I don't believe that America wants to be dominated by drugs. And I think we need to take on any element, wherever it is and whatever it's doing, and stop it. Every family that I know of has had an experience, has been stated here today, with drugs. We've had our families torn apart. We've had people die from overdrugs. We didn't even know that they were taking drugs. So these are the kind of things that we've got to get together. And it's not going to do it if Skip Humphrey or Manuel Maloof or Ken Crowder, the Justice, does that. It's going to take people doing it and not putting up with anything. We're not going to let our kids use drugs, and we're going to explain to them why they shouldn't. And just think about all the great people you've known that have succumbed to drugs and what it's done to them. We can't continue to let this happen in America if we mean to be the great country, the free country that we are.
Manuel, let me ask you a question, because it's interesting that the focus of this treaty campaign, the organizational structure, focuses on the county level, and that certainly is an organization of government that everyone understands throughout the United States. But of course, the counties, I know in our state, certainly have a great deal of responsibility of dealing with the effects of the illegal use of drugs. And I would suspect that that's the same kind of situation that would occur in Georgia. And sometimes people don't realize the heavy costs that are involved. We often hear people complain, and I certainly have done it on time, about how those taxes have to be paid. And I understand that a great deal of the costs of what we have to deal with is because of this kind of a problem, and it hits right at that county level.
The health department is run by the county, the jails, the prosecution is run by the counties, the programs for drug addiction are run by the counties. And then when you measure all of the crimes that are committed in the name of drugs and what it does to people, the victims, I don't know how you put a price on it. It is beyond belief anymore.
But then it's not just a problem for the victims of the use of that drug, but really it's a burden on all of us, whether it's a private company or a public entity. It costs us all, doesn't it?
It costs us in so many ways, especially our creativity. We spend so much time dealing with drugs, it robs us of our ability to develop, our ability to progress. Those things that we ought to be doing to make this a better country and to invent those things that can be in competition with other places in the world, we spend too much time having to fight drugs because drugs has permeated us to a degree none of us ever thought it would. Drugs was not a problem when I was a youngster. We didn't even think of it. And for the life of me, I don't understand how it got to be where it is now. But it's here and we have to deal with it. I have 8 children. I've had trouble with some of my kids with this. Fortunately, we've overcome it and we've gotten away from it. And I know what it's like to get away from these problems. But while it was a problem to me, it drove me crazy. So I ask all of you who have children, who have families, don't put up with it. Work with them, resolve it, and anybody that's selling it, deal with it. Don't be afraid to go to a person like the Attorney General in your area or your district attorney, your policeman. Report people who sell drugs. We've got to take it out of our lives if we're going to survive as a great country. And we are a great country, but we'll have to get rid of drugs to continue to be a great country.
Ken, isn't this really the premise of the whole structure of this, is to rely upon the citizen? This country was built upon volunteer involvement of people deciding to come together to form their own country and nation and to solve their own problems. And isn't this really where the whole hope of this organization and this effort is going to come from average people having had these kinds of difficulties and having ideas of their own? You know, I'm driving down the road going to work or something, and I see something that happens, or I hear something on the news, and I think to myself, well, there ought to be a way to change that, or maybe we could do something about this or that. And I suspect everyone has those kinds of thoughts. Shouldn't they get involved in this organization and write those thoughts down? Isn't that what we're looking for?
This is exactly what it is. You've just described of the people, by the people, and for the people, which is the framework of the constitutional process of government. People in the 90% plus do not want drugs available to children. What they have to have is an organizational process locally in order to register these feelings, in order to develop their policies. And once developed, they will support it. And they'll support it simply because you ask, Manuel asked, I asked, everybody here asked. And that's the key to the whole process.
But the main thing is to get into the organization where they can participate.
Exactly.
I think everybody's asking for that.
Right.
The grassroots organization, the network.
So in a sense, what we're designing here, what you have designed, what we're trying to pursue is a national brainstorming for the policies, and then to have a structure that will allow us to implement the programs on a public and a private side.
You've got it. That's what it's going to be.
Well, I think it's going to work. It'll work, of course, if the public becomes involved. And they can do that with our help and with all the help here from people in Minnesota and hopefully in many other states.
Well, when it becomes a thing to do, when leaders like you've assembled here make a statement as you're making, this is the thing to do, that's when the people follow. And I can't tell you how proud I am, not only of these Georgians coming up here in this weather, but also for, I know how busy everybody here is. And it says a lot for your leadership. It says a lot for everybody to take the time to make your commitment to keep drugs away from children.
One thing about we Georgians, we do understand great leadership Minnesota has given to this country, especially in education and things of that nature. I don't know of anybody who's done as much for education as Minnesota has. So I think it would be very simple for you coming together as you are today to educate your people about drugs. I don't know of another state in the union that's as progressive as Minnesota is. I sometimes am envious of how progressive you are. So I know you'll take this and run with it and show the rest of the country what can be done with it.
Well, we appreciate your coming to Minnesota to show us the way, because all too often people will say, well, there's a drug problem and it's somewhere else. And we know that this is our problem, the people's problem, and I would assume that we can solve our problems together. That's what I hope this is all about, Ken.
That's it.
Okay, I think I just want to say goodbye.
This special live telecast originated in the studios of WCCO-TV, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and is broadcast via facilities of the Turner Broadcasting System and WTBS-TV, Atlanta, Georgia, in hopes we can stop drugs at the source.
No, sir.
I don't think it's a joke, sir, said Clevenger. Don't interrupt. Yes, sir. And say sir when you do, ordered Major Metcalf. Yes, sir.
Anything worth living for, said Nately, is worth dying for. And anything worth dying for, answered the sacrilegious old man, is certainly worth living for.
Sure, I can ground Orr, but first he has to ask me to. That's all he's got to do to be grounded? That's all. Let him ask me. And then you can ground him, Yossarian asked. No, then I can't ground him. You mean there's a catch?
After World War II, he wrote a black satire about that war, about all wars. He called it Catch 18, but his publisher had another 18 book that year, so they picked a different number.
Help him!
What?
Help him! Help him!
Help who?
Help the bombardier!
I'm the bombardier. I'm all right.
Then help him! Help him!
On my 37th mission Avenue, that was a defining moment for me. Up until then, war was very much like a Hollywood movie in which I was one of the stars or one of the co-stars.
Help him! Help him!
Help who?
Help the bombardier!
I'm the bombardier. I'm all right.
Then help him! Help him!
There was somebody wailing on the intercom exactly as I've described in the book, saying the bombardier, somebody help the bombardier. I was the bombardier, and I said, I'm okay. He said, we'll go back and help the gunner, the turret gunner. He's hit. And there was a gunner with a big, big wound in his thigh. And I realized then, maybe for the first time, they were really trying to kill me.
Okay. You're going to be okay.
From that mission, from the 37th on to the 60th, I was scared stiff on everyone. It was no longer funny for me.
Years later, Heller created John Yossarian, the anti-war hero of our time. Together, they added a new phrase to the language.
Catch-22, a paradox, leaving no means of escape from a dilemma.
There's a catch! A catch! Sure, catch-22.
The scene with Alan Arkin in the movies, where he's trying to understand why, if he's crazy, he cannot be taken off combat duty. And that's where the paradox is.
In order to be grounded, I've got to be crazy. And I must be crazy to keep flying. But if I ask to be grounded, that means I'm not crazy anymore and I have to keep flying. You've got it. That's catch-22.
That's some catch, that catch-22 he observed. It's the best there is, Dr. Nika agreed.
Alan Arkin played Yossarian in the film version of Catch-22.
I think Heller, for the first time, completely validated the idea of paranoia. Yossarian keeps seeing the same situation over and over and over again until he finally says, that's it. I'm not going to go through this anymore.
Over and over again. So it goes in the book. Yossarian's commanding officer raises the number of missions his men must fly. Yossarian is simply trying to escape a process that's likely to kill him. Members of Heller's old squadron on Corsica remember a war different from Yossarian's.
It was pure fantasy, and he should have apologized at the first page of the book.
He did. He said any similarity to Living or Dead is purely coincidental. But there were a lot of coincidences.
They might have thought it's a novel about that's about that squadron. But it's not. It's not a realistic novel. It doesn't intend to be. It doesn't purport to be.
We were told, that D-Day
is upon us, men, and we are not going to get any replacements, and we're not going to get any aircraft, and we're just going to have to fly. You're going to have to fly more than 50 missions. The second lieutenant in the back of the room said, "Colonel, do you mean to tell me we're going to have to fly until we die?" And he says, "Well, son, if that's the way you read it, that's the way it is."
The tension would go up, guys thinking they're going home, and then all of a sudden, whoopee, 5 more missions, and you don't know whether you're coming back or not. So I went to the flight surgeon and I said, "I'm not going to fly anymore. 65 is enough." I gave them all those chances and they kept missing me, and I'm not going to fly anymore.
Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Sure, people were mighty scared, but I resent the way he trashed everybody. Now it's become a national pastime practically. Up we zoom, climbing to meet our thunder, off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame, but go down in flame, boys. Nothing can stop the Air Corps.
3, 2, 1, drop! Let's go! Turn right, hard! Turn, you son of a bitch!
Mike Nichols' office.
Mike Nichols directed that 1970 film version of the book.
The Second World War, after all, was the last war on Earth in which there are good guys and bad guys. And Joe was perhaps the first one to question that. We all knew about the bad guys, but the good guys were a little more complicated than we had thought. And I think that Joe had a lot of questions about that.
The story of Catch-22 is this. It's concerned itself with a bombardier and a group of men who were in a particular bomb group in the Mediterranean theater of operations late in World War II, whose commanding officer, for no reason having nothing to do with the needs of the war itself, wants his men to fly more combat missions than the men in other bomb groups are flying. And the men grow aware of this. And that is simply the story. And Yossarian, when he grows aware of it, not immediately, but after a good friend of his has been killed, decides he's not going to fly any more missions.
They're trying to kill me.
No one's trying to kill you.
Why are they shooting at me?
They're shooting at everyone. They're trying to kill everyone.
Hey, what difference does that make?
I think Yossarian was one of the first of the disaffected marginal Americans.
That's 2 tickets for Thursday the 15th at 8 p.m.
Critic and playwright Robert Brustein wrote one of the early glowing reviews of Catch-22.
What we were getting after the war to end all wars were a whole series of wars. Yossarian was one of the first to say no. He's like the good soldier Schweik, you know. He's one of the first literary heroes who just says no to a system. And he encouraged the rest of us to say no to that system as well.
Well, Yossarian is the I victim, is the dreamer, is the person who wakes up and is the guy in the Philadelphia Bulletin ads that people of a certain generation remember, where everybody's reading the Philadelphia Bulletin except the one guy that the train is bearing down on. Yossarian is that guy.
He's a guy that's in love with his life to the point where he will do anything to keep it from being extinguished. He has absolutely no love of death, no desire to die for anybody else's causes, and he wants to survive.
I'm not going to disrupt our religious services just to accommodate a bunch of lousy atheists. They're getting no special privileges from me. They can stay right where they are and pray with the rest of us.
Cathcart represents a vain superior officer who wants a promotion. He's very self-conscious. He might just as well be looking in the mirror all the time. He has a wonderful scene with the chaplain when he calls them in. He says he wants us to have prayers said before each mission. And the reason is not to get the men into heaven, the reason is to get himself a story in Life magazine. He is not unusual, I think, among people in public office or military figures as well.
Now, what's with the enlisted men? How the hell did they get into this act?
I'm sorry, sir. I just assumed you wanted the enlisted men to be present, since they're flying along on the same mission.
Well, I don't. They have a god and a chaplain of their own, haven't they?
No, sir.
What do you mean? You're trying to tell me that they worship the same god we do?
Yes, sir.
And he listens?
I think so, sir.
Well, I'll be damned.
Cathcart is every boss you've ever had that doesn't know what the hell he's doing. The high mucky muck that comes on the set and people have to lead him so that he won't go crashing into cables and lights and everything. And gently try to explain to him what you're doing. And then he gives you a little ceremonial gift and asks a dopey question and gets led away. You know, Cathcart is your boss.
He's the one that, in one's worst nightmares, is the boss of the business in which you work, or he's the leader of your regiment. He's the principal of your school. He's the one in power who is the last person in the world who should be in power, because he's mad, absolutely nuts.
There's a feeling of helplessness, which many of us do feel in military situations and business situations, where we are at the mercy of forces of authority that we did not choose, we did not select, and yet whose power is unmistakable.
The Cathcart of Catch-22 is bigotry, hypocrisy,